Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. No, I am not Jared Stillman. I am Adam Vingan. That is Jake Lyman. Jared Stillman on vacation one day more. He will be back tomorrow at his regularly scheduled 2:00. But I am happy to be here filling in for Jared today. I want to say hello to all of Jared's fans on the YouTube chat because, Jake, as you know, Jared's YouTube chat, it's hopping, man.
It is. It was hopping yesterday. I was looking back through it. They got into it for Joe and PK too.
If Stefan from Saturday Night Live was still around, he would say, Nashville's hottest club is Jared's YouTube chat. And I would like to say hello to all of Jared's adoring fans who I lovingly refer to as the Stillman Simps because they agree with everything that Jared says. And God forbid you disagree with them.
That's always the challenge with filling in for Jared is because you get one of two responses from people. Either I hate this show. When is Jared coming back? Or thank God Jared's off. So glad to hear someone else.
That is true. Now, I did hear Joe Rexroad attempt to do a Jared Stillman impersonation. Oh, by the way, David Reed is here as well. Hello, David.
Thank you, guys.
I did not forget about you, Dave.
It's okay. It's fine.
David
I'm
is
easily overlooked.
No, absolutely not. David makes this show go. And I heard Joe Rexroad yesterday attempt to do a Stillman impression. It was okay. I don't think of myself as an impressionist, but I did have David Reed pull up a deep cut. So I am going to attempt to do a Stillman impersonation right now. And it is Stillman and Company on 1025, 1063 in The Game. That's about as best I can do.
That's not nearly as harsh as what Joe was doing yesterday. So I appreciate that one. That effort was in there.
Joe was getting shrill yesterday.
Yeah, he hit some notes.
I was on the morning show yesterday, and of course the morning show now produced by Ian Safar, who spent countless years dealing with Jared. And I said, Ian, what was the name of the song that you used to play at the start of every show? And he reminded me it was a Foo Fighter song. So I pulled it up and sent it to Reed. So I wanted to do that for all of you so that you could get that Stillman comfort.
It's been a week without Jared. I'm sure people are missing it out there. Less than 24 more hours, and you will have Jared back on these airwaves.
Yeah, I still have to. I don't understand this whole coming back from vacation on a Friday.
Yeah, he's done this before. I don't really understand it, but
in the end of May, June, like there's nothing going on. There's nothing.
Yeah,
right. Just take the extra day.
Take the weekend.
Maybe his girlfriend's like, look, there's only so much of you I can handle. You're going back to work.
I'm giving you back to the people of Nashville. Yes. They can babysit you.
Yes. Nate on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says that Joe's impression was better. So maybe that's true. I don't pretend to be good at impressions. I just thought I would give it a shot. But yesterday, last night specifically, Jake was like Christmas for a lot of fans in the NFL because it was NFL schedule release day. By now, you have seen the Titans schedule. We are not going to go through every single game on the schedule. But this is what I want to do to start the show. At 615-737-1025, our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Now that you've probably had enough time to analyze the schedule, I want your Titans schedule bold predictions / hot takes. It can be about a specific game. It can be about a specific stretch of games. So, for example, had you looked at the Titans schedule when it was released last season and say, those back-to-back road games at Buffalo and Detroit, I bet the Titans lose those games by a combined score of 86-24. Well, you would have been dead on because that's exactly what happened. So if you have a hot take or a bold prediction about anything related to the Titans schedule, call us, text us, 615-737-1025. We're not going to do the stereotypical sports talk radio thing, win, loss, win, loss. We're not going to do that. I'm sure Jared is going to open his show tomorrow with the official Stillman and Company Titans schedule expectations thing, which is different than the predictions, which makes absolutely no sense. It's mostly so that if his expectation is wrong and his prediction is right, he can claim his prediction was right while ignoring that his expectation was wrong. So you can hear that tomorrow probably.
Yes.
But Jake, I told you this is what we were doing. So I want your Tennessee Titans schedule, bold prediction, hot take right now.
All right. I was going back and forth with this today, and I was going to go a little bit more tame with my prediction, but it would have been more of a lukewarm take. So I'm going to go a little bolder here. I don't know what's going to happen early in the season, but I think this Titans team with Cam Ward at quarterback will hit their stride late in the season. I'm going to predict 5 Titans wins after the bye week.
5 Titans wins after the bye week.
I don't think they're going to be in position to make a playoff spot.
So that would be 5 wins in 8 games.
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to go with 4, but that didn't feel hot, like a hot take enough. But you've got 2 games against the Jaguars. You've got the Browns. You've got the Saints. And the Browns and Saints are the only other 2 teams that didn't get a primetime game along with the Titans. Maybe 2 of the worst teams in football. I think you could get possibly all 4 of those, and then maybe you steal one against the Texans or the Seahawks at home. I don't think you're beating the Chiefs or the 49ers on the road, but I'm going to go bold. I'll say 5-3 down the stretch, although I don't think it is enough to put them in the playoff hunt.
So you mentioned that the Titans have 0 primetime games. They are one of 3 teams, again, as you mentioned, that have 0 primetime games, along with the Cleveland Browns and New Orleans Saints. And Mike North, the NFL Vice President of Broadcast Planning and Scheduling, that's a big title, said this to CBS Sports, quote, "We kind of have this adage that you play your way into primetime. You don't draft your way into primetime. So the Titans are one of the teams that don't currently have a national television window assigned, but that's what things like flexible scheduling are for. And if you look down the stretch for the Titans, they play San Francisco in week 15, Kansas City in week 16. They've got the same opportunity every other team has to play their way into a national window," end quote. Makes sense to me.
It's true, but it does feel like you're moving the goalpost because Caleb Williams played on Sunday Night Football week 2 last year, and the Bears were horrible the year before. So I think it depends on what logo you have next to your name on whether you have to play your way into primetime or whether you draft your way into primetime.
Let's go to Michael on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Michael, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I think my hot take for the schedule this year, and this may be more along the lines of say something more about the division that we play in, more than the Titans. But I think that we're going to go 5-1 in the division. We're going to sweep the Colts and the Jaguars, split with the Texans, and end up winning the division because of that. I don't know about the actual win total. It may end up being, like the Seahawks back in the day where they won the division with going 8-7-1 or whatever. But I think we can win the division based on the moves that the other teams have made. The Texans line is really weak. I don't like the Colts or the Jaguars, whatever they've done. So I think that we're going to win the division. It could be 8-9, could be 10-7, but that's my hot take for the year.
Thank you for the call, Michael. So 5 wins in division. Sweep the Colts and the Jags and split with the Texans. That would be quite the hot take on the schedule. I'll quickly give you mine. According to Jeff Howe of The Athletic, the Titans are one of 3 teams in the NFL with a 3-game road trip on their schedule. The others, the Ravens and the Patriots. The Titans in weeks 4, 5, and 6 will be on the road at Houston, at Arizona, and at Las Vegas. My bold prediction / hot take is that the Titans win 2 of those 3 games.
I like that. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be very good this year. The Raiders, their quarterback situation is better. Geno Smith is better than Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. I don't hate that. I don't hate that they could win 2 of those 3. And divisional games are always toss-ups, which is why I also, I would have to differ with Michael there. I don't think the Titans are winning 5 divisional games this year.
I will say this, though, for those of you who are upset that the Titans do not have a primetime game, you're wrong. They do. It's in the preseason against the Vikings at 7 o'clock. So there is one.
That's a good point. They
Technically,
will be
it's true.
Playing under the lights, and we will get to see plenty of Tim Boyle in that game, I'm sure.
Yes. So Primetime Tim Boyle. That's what they call him. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines, of course, are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I want you to analyze the schedule. Again, you've seen it by now. It's been out for almost 24 hours. I want your Tennessee Titans schedule hot takes / bold predictions. It can be about a specific game. It can be about a stretch of games. You heard Michael make predictions about the AFC South. I want your hot take / bold prediction based on the Titan schedule at 615-737-1025. Tune in today to 1025 The Game for Vanderbilt baseball as the Commodores face Kentucky. Pregame begins right after our program at 5:45, and first pitch is at 6. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Adam Vingan and Jake Lyman in for Jared Stillman today, who will return tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Our schedule has been a bit out of whack these past few days. It's been fun bouncing around. This is my third time slot in 4 days, but we will be back to normal tomorrow, starting at 6 a.m. with Robbie and Rex Road, Chase and Big Joe from 9 to 11, DVD from 11 to 2, and of course, Stillman and Company from 2 to 6. So on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, I want your Tennessee Titans schedule, bold predictions, or hot takes. Jake's, yours was that the Titans will win 5 of 8 after the bye.
Yes.
Mine was that the Titans will win 2 of their 3 games on their 3-game road trip, which I always think is funny when NFL teams go on road trips because they play 1 game a week and oftentimes they fly home and then they go back out. It's not like in the NHL where if the Predators go on a 5-game road trip, they're out of town for 2 weeks.
Right. Like every other sport, a road trip is actually a road trip where you do not come home. But the Titans, I guess there was a thought that maybe they would stay out on the West Coast playing Arizona and Vegas in back-to-back weeks, but I believe that's not happening. So they will return home between all 3 of those games.
Let's go to Cam on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Cam, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon.
Hello, how are you?
So one thing I have to admit is when I'm at work to listen to Jared, I have to do the live stream with YouTube. And when you go to commercial break, there's no audio, there's no nothing. It's just silence. And when he gets back on, he just, what is it? It scares the hell out of me every time because I forget I'm wearing my AirPod and I'll be wrapped up in something. And I'm like, Jesus, it scares me every single time. About the schedule, the primetime thing, I don't really understand because, I mean, at this point in age, like if you really care about the Titans and you want to watch that game, you can find a way to watch that game. I mean, with all the streaming platforms and sometimes even not, I guess legally, you can get on YouTube and it'll be playing the game on YouTube. Now, as far as the schedule, I'm curious to see if Cam Ward, when he goes up against these big brand teams like Kansas City and whoever, if he tries to compete with the opposing quarterback, if that makes any sense, if he's trying to swing hammers with Patrick Mahomes or if he stays composed and just sticks to the script. Because I feel like that's what we had a lot of issues with Levis is he was trying to compete with the opposing quarterback as opposed to just the opposing defense. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for the call, Cam. And that's a good question. By the way, one texter on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, Austin, his bold prediction is that the Titans will upset the Broncos in week 1. By the way, if you are a betting person, the Titans are already 7-point underdogs on the road at Denver 4 months from now. So place your bets now, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, the stats have been coming out about how good the Broncos have been in September because of the being mile high and, a lot of these guys may not be in full-on mid-season football shape yet. They're very good at home in September, and that's also one of the best defenses in football. I think 7 points is probably about right for what the Titans are bringing over there to Colorado in September.
And we'll talk to that's hard for me to say. We'll talk to Teron Davenport at 4 o'clock. We will have the TD Power Hour from 4 to 5. We'll get Teron's thoughts on the schedule, but also we'll talk about the schedule in the context of Cam Ward, because as Jake said, the Broncos arguably have the best defense in the NFL. The Broncos led the NFL in sacks by a wide margin last season, and they have the reigning defensive player of the year at corner. So if you're looking for a test for a number 1 overall pick quarterback on the road against that defense, you're absolutely going to get it. Jake, I found this funny yesterday. I was sitting in with Robbie on the morning show, and we saw Marcus Mariota have an excellent debut. We saw Will Levis have an excellent debut. It ultimately didn't work out for either of those quarterbacks. So Robbie was like, I'm hoping that Cam Ward kind of stinks.
That's
his
what
first game.
Me and Derek said the exact same thing on Monday and Tuesday was Cam needs to go out there, throw for 150 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks, and move on with his career. We do not want 4 touchdown passes against the Broncos on September 7th.
Skylar on our text line says, the Titans always lose week 1. I have no idea why, but put your mortgage on the Broncos money line. No, thank you. I do not want to do that.
There was a strange phenomenon for a few years there where you could tell which way the Titans season was going to go based on what they did in week 1. If they won week 1, the season was going to be horrible. The year they went 2-14, they beat the Chiefs in week 1. The year they went 3-13, or maybe flip-flop it, they beat the Buccaneers in Marcus Mariota's debut. But then, like, every year they went to the playoffs, they lost week 1. So do with that what you will.
Justin in Greenbrier says, I guess my hot take is 9-8. I just feel like they are going to be a more confident team with a leader that is cooler under pressure. He hasn't played a snap in the NFL yet, meaning Cam Ward, but Levis was so high strung. I think that cost them games last season. Certainly did. I feel like they will go 5-4 into the bye and 4-4 after. And that's what the NFL schedule release is all about. That unbridled optimism, that hope that your team, which was very, very bad last season, could possibly be mediocre this season. Who's to say? I appreciate the optimism. Let's see. Who else on our text line has a prediction? One texter says the Titans will win only 4 games this year, while Dylan says the Titans will go 11-6, with 4 of the 6 losses being against divisional opponents.
That is, Dylan, I want to have your optimism for life, because I do not see 11 wins on here, especially if you're saying that they're going to lose 4 games in the division. So what would that mean? You only lose 2 of your other games. So let's say you lose to the Chiefs and you lose to the Broncos. That means you're beating the Rams, the Cardinals, the Patriots, the Chargers, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. You're winning all of those games, not just a couple of them. You're winning all of them.
One texter says, as time rolls on, Titans fans keep biting the cheese, saying Cam is going to be good, like the entire NFL didn't rank him behind Bo Nix. And this is one element, Jake, of that week 1 matchup that I am looking forward to, because how many times did we hear in draft season, well, if Cam Ward would have been in last year's class, he would have been the 5th quarterback taken. I'm interested to see Cam Ward up against Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix exceeded expectations last season with Sean Payton as coach, but I am interested in the head-to-head matchup from that perspective, because what if Cam Ward outduels Bo Nix? To all of the people that said, well, Cam Ward would have been drafted behind Bo Nix, did they change their tune at all?
Well, I mean, that's just not true what Texter said. Bo Nix was the last quarterback taken in that class, and most people said Cam would have been ahead of McCarthy and Nix, but behind that group of 4. And Bo Nix was picked 12th last year. It's not like somebody was offering 2 first-round picks, 2 seconds, and a third to come up and take Bo Nix last year. That happened this year. I'm not saying that Cam Ward's going to outduel Bo Nix, but the idea that Bo Nix was a better prospect than Cam Ward is just complete lunacy.
Dylan says there are too many Dylans who listen to this station. No way the Titans go 11-6, more like 6-11. Another Dylan. So one Dylan says 11-6. The other Dylan says 6-11.
They're on the complete ends of the spectrum.
Too many Dylans. There are too many Dylans.
Well,
they spell
yeah,
their name the same way.
We need to input these better on the text line, because they are both just Dylan on there. We got to start getting where these guys are listening from.
Well, Dylan in Antioch does sign his text. Dylan in Antioch.
Well,
so the other Dylan, you need to sign your text too. 615-737-1025. We will continue to take your Titans schedule, bold predictions, or hot takes, because it's that time of year. And who knows? Well, actually, I do know. September 7th will be here sooner than you know. I don't know how many days exactly. I'm not going to do that math, but we are far, far away from week 1. But we're excited because we actually know what order the Titans are going to be playing their opponents in. 615-737-1025. Nashville's best deal of the week is Bavarian Beer House, conveniently located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy beer, food, music, and fun at Nashville's only authentic German beer hall, where it's Oktoberfest every day. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get a $50 gift card for only $25 to Bavarian Beer House while supplies last. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Adam Vingan, Jake Lyman in for Jared today. He will return tomorrow at 2 o'clock as our schedule resets. Let's get to some of your NFL schedule hot takes on our text line, or Titan schedule, I should say. Hot takes on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHundy.com. One texter says, my bold take is that the Titans are going to be 2-4 with Mike Vrabel coming into town. If we lose that game, Amy will fire someone. So here are the Titans' first 6 games leading into that home game on Sunday, October 19th against Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. At Denver, home to the Rams, home to the Colts, at Houston, at Arizona, at Las Vegas. So B-Man on our text line says that the Titans will lose 4 of 6 to open the season as Mike Vrabel comes to town. I guess my better question is, what record do the Patriots have?
That's probably going to be a bigger factor at the end of the season as to if somebody gets fired. Is if Vrabel goes and turns the Patriots into a playoff team and the Titans go 4-13, I have a hard time believing everyone's keeping their jobs in that building.
Here is the Patriots schedule leading into the visit to Nashville. Home against Las Vegas, at Miami, home to Pittsburgh, home to Carolina, at Buffalo, at New Orleans. There are some very winnable games.
I would say minimum 3 wins, possibly 4. So
the 3-3 Patriots against the 2-4 Titans with Mike Vrabel coming to town.
Primetime.
Well,
Flex it.
Unfortunately, that game cannot be flexed, but that will be an interesting game, of course, with Mike Vrabel coming to town. Well, you know what? The Titans actually, Jake, are already up 1 game on a team in their division, the Indianapolis Colts, because the Colts took a big fat L today without even playing a game. Colts had to delete their schedule release video. Now, this has become a trend in the NFL. The Titans, their schedule release video a couple of years ago went viral. Remember, they went down to Broadway and showed non-football fans the logos of teams and had them guess. It was very funny. And
Yes.
other teams copied it. They did an excellent job on that. So these videos are incredibly popular. The Colts did a Minecraft-inspired video, as did the Chargers. First of all, the Colts apparently did not get permission from Microsoft to do this, while the Chargers did. The Chargers had a statement before their video that they had permission from Microsoft. The Colts video did not include that clearance, so the Colts had to take it down. And then they also had to apologize, so they had clips for each opponent. And the clip with the Dolphins was a dolphin with Tyreek Hill's name on it being pulled over by the Coast Guard. Because if you'll recall, Tyreek Hill was pulled over by Miami police on his way to, I believe, the Dolphins season opener last year. So they were poking fun at that. And the Colts had to release a statement saying, quote, "We removed our schedule release video because it exceeded our rights with Microsoft and included an insensitive clip involving Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. We sincerely apologize to Microsoft and Tyreek," a sentence that has never been nor will ever be written again. We sincerely apologize to Microsoft and Tyreek. So the Colts already down 0-1 in this season.
Tyreek did tweet that he thought it was funny and they should have kept it up. So at the very least, Tyreek has given his go-ahead. I don't think Microsoft will be as easy. But I think that was the funniest one I've seen from yesterday. The Titans clips in there were really well done. They had the party bus with the bachelorette party rolling down Broadway. You can see one of the Minecraft girls throw up in the back, and then they run over Will Levis drinking a jar of mayonnaise. Will Levis, even though he's not the starting quarterback, I think he got shots from the Chargers too. You tweeted out the video of Will Levis meme overload, and they had to restart it.
Right. So the Chargers also had a Minecraft-inspired video, and for the Titan section, like the picture starts jumping, and there are like little pictures of all of the terrible Will Levis turnovers and such, and then it says connection loss. Will Levis memes have overloaded your bandwidth. So bravo to the Chargers. I feel like the Chargers are routinely among the best teams at doing these videos.
They are consistent. They did, I think it was an anime one that went pretty viral either last year or the year before. And I'm not like a big anime guy, but I thought it was really well done. It does seem like the Chargers have one of the best social teams in the league. And what makes it funnier is I think if you go back to like 2011 on the Chargers feed, it wasn't the Chargers running it. It was just some random guy. So there's like tweets of like, what should I get for lunch today? And stuff like that. So funny the Chargers have turned that account into one of the best in the league.
So B-Man said that the Titans will be 2-4 going into the Patriots game. Matthew from Jolton said the Titans will be 5-1 going into the Patriots game. Man, I appreciate your optimism, guys. I do.
It's the season of good feelings until the live bullets start flying and Cam Ward gets sacked on the second play of the game in Denver. Everyone's going to think that this team, I said it with D-Mace earlier this week. Every single football fan, all 32 teams, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a Saints fan.
I am.
There you go. There's a 1% of every football fan that thinks if everything goes right, we could be a playoff team.
I'm not thinking that.
You're not they're not even 1%?
No.
Titans fans, it seems like there's a few who are a little more optimistic. Matthew, after saying 5-1 going into the Patriots game, says they finish with 10+ wins, including a win over Kansas City.
Now you're just nuts, Matthew. Now you're nuts.
Where are the 10 wins on this schedule? I'd love for you to find them for me because I don't see them.
Okay, Matthew,
8.
that's your challenge, my friend. You need to tell me the 10+ wins that they have on this schedule. 615-737-1025 will continue to take your schedule hot takes and bold predictions. But coming up next, I like to talk about this on DVD, Jake, the Schoolyard Bash. Schoolyard Bash. Schoolyard Bash. Well, we apparently have one online between a football coach and a prominent analyst.
Yes.
We will get to that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Adam Vingan, Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game. Adam Ving and Jake Lyman in for Jared today. We will continue to take your Tennessee Titans schedule hot takes and bold predictions. Caleb says we should be ashamed of ourselves for reading such nonsense on the air in terms of the optimistic view of the Tennessee Titans. I'll say this. I don't belittle my callers and texters like Jared Stillman when they say something I don't agree with. So if you have that unbridled optimism, you go for it. You go, Glenn Coco, if that's what you want to do. But I do want to touch on a bit of a schoolyard bash that's happening online right now. So as you all probably remember, Mel Kiper Jr. was obsessed with Shedeur Sanders. All he could talk about is Shedeur Sanders. When Shedeur Sanders plummeted in the draft, Mel Kiper Jr. took it personally that Shedeur Sanders fell into the 5th round. Questioned teams' ability to develop quarterbacks and evaluate quarterbacks. So Miami's Mario Cristobal, who coached Cam Ward, of course, last season, this was a tweet from Brett McMurphy, veteran football reporter. Quote, Miami's Mario Cristobal said he spoke to, quote, 1 million people about number 1 NFL draft pick Cam Ward, except one. Quote, I can't recall many NFL teams or TV people I didn't speak to. However, Cristobal and OC Shannon Dawson never spoke with ESPN's Mel Kiper, who was criticized for overshadowing Ward's moment with his nonstop Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders narrative. Never heard from him, Cristobal said. I don't think I've ever talked to him. Cristobal added he wasn't disappointed by Kiper ignoring Ward. Quote, the only reason I would be disappointed was if Cam was. But knowing Cam, he just wanted to hear the name and exactly where he was going and get to work. So according to Mario Cristobal, he never spoke to Mel Kiper in the draft process. Well, Mel Kiper responded. And Mel Kiper said this, quote, Mario Cristobal claims he spoke to 1 million people about Cam Ward, yet the one he didn't speak to, being me, had Ward ranked higher, 6th on my big board, than any of the other draft experts. Interesting, isn't it? And oh, by the way, I didn't speak to Dion about Shedeur either. I need another orange crush after this nonsense. That was Mel Kiper responding to Mario Cristobal through Brett McMurphy yesterday.
What a mess, Mel. I mean, Mel Kiper, to be fair, they do say all publicity is good publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity, and he's gotten his name out there, but he just falls under the umbrella of like the Joe Lunardi. How did he get his job, and why do we just subscribe to what he says? Because I don't think Mel Kiper is like this guru scout kind of guy who just knows what these players are going to be. He's just a guy who ESPN has hired to talk about the draft. And I think it is hilarious that he didn't talk to, I mean, heading into the draft, the top 2 quarterbacks, he did not talk to either of their coaches before making any kind of evaluation. I think that's pretty funny.
Jared from Spring Hill says, if Shedeur and Cam Ward square off in their game and Shedeur looks better, what will the fallout be? Well, Cleveland plays Tennessee at Cleveland on Sunday, December 7th. That's week 14. So it's possible Shedeur Sanders could be playing quarterback for the Cleveland Browns by then. Who knows if he'll be playing at the start of the season. But it wouldn't shock me if by week 14, Shedeur Sanders was starting games for the Cleveland Browns. And boy, oh boy, if that is the case, Jake, and it's Cam Ward against Shedeur Sanders in the NFL, and Shedeur Sanders wins that game, this show at 2:00 the next day would be must-listen radio.
Oh, for sure. And people would be freaking out. But Shedeur's a 5th-round pick. Like, no one was saying in 99 or whatever, what if Tom Brady beats or looks better than Peyton Manning in this game? Like, no, there was no conversation of Shedeur Sanders as the number 1 pick, at least in the Titans room, I would assume. I don't think the Titans considered Shedeur Sanders over Cam Ward. And I think if you look at the film, you can pretty much determine why Cam Ward was a head and shoulders better prospect in 1 minute. So, like, yes, people would freak out, but it's not like the Titans were going coin flip. They're so close. Which one do we take? There was never a discussion of that. So you can't really say that they made a mistake if Shedeur Sanders looks better in one game.
Bigger freak out potential. Shedeur Sanders beats Cam Ward. the Browns beat the Titans. It's more than one player, of course, on each team, but it will be framed as Shador beats Cam Ward.
I know where you're going. I'll go ahead
In
and
week
answer
14.
it. November 24th, the day after the Seattle game. Sam Darnold comes in here and beats Cam Ward.
Actually,
unlistenable.
This is what I was thinking. That's a good one, Reed. I hadn't thought about that one. Those two games, or the reaction to Malik Willis beating the Titans last season.
Oh, both of those would be higher. Yeah, like I know Jared went off the rails about Malik Willis beating the Titans last year, but if Sam Darnold, let's say the Titans get blown out in that game against the Seahawks and Darnold throws for 3 or 4 touchdowns.
That's week 12, Sunday, November 23rd.
Cam Ward throws a brutal pick or something like that. Oh, Jared will take a 4-hour victory lap. Honestly, he will probably take a 20-hour victory lap that entire week. There will be no talk about the Jaguars coming up on November 30th. It would just be, I told you so, Sam Darnold. But the Shador one would be bad too. But Darnold 100% would be number one.
I had honestly forgotten about the Darnold thing, although Jared spoke about Sam Darnold for months. I would love to do an analysis of the percentage of time on his program over a certain number of months he spoke about Sam Darnold. I feel like it would be too much to say like 70% of the show, but I would say about half. I would say about half of the total airtime was devoted to Sam Darnold over a stretch of time.
You could make an argument that from like last offseason when he signed with the Vikings to when he signed with the Seahawks, so give it 365 days, I would bet over half of his shows there was a segment about Sam Darnold, or where Sam Darnold was at least mentioned.
Well, you and I were on the air when the news broke,
right,
that Sam Darnold was signing with the Seahawks, and we had to break the news to Jared. It was a sad day in the Stillman house.
Yes, it was. And I mean, the Titans, it had been reported for days on end at that point. The Titans were not interested in Sam Darnold. But yes, if Sam Darnold comes in here to Nashville and lights up the Titans and beats Cam Ward, I would venture that 75 to 80% of airtime that week on this program would be a victory lap.
One texter says, the only thing Mel Kiper is an expert of is his hairspray. I mean, credit where credit is due. He does have a nice head of hair for a man his age.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not quite as much anymore, but yeah, you see the old clips of when he was going at it with, I'm blanking on the Colts GM's name, who?
Bill Polian?
No, who said that his neighbor knows more than him. I'm blanking on his name, but yes, you see those clips, and Mel Kiper has a luscious head of hair.
Yes, it's slightly less luscious, but for someone who doesn't have much hair, I would take even the slightly less luscious hair on Mel Kiper's head than my own. Let's get to some of your other schedule hot takes before Teron Davenport joins us for the TD Power Hour at 4 o'clock. Justin in Greenbrier says, the schedule is actually not a tough one. If the Titans can play competent football and just be in most of these games, I feel like they could pull off the 9-8 or 8-9 finish. Now, the Titans, based on their opponent's winning percentage last season, have the 4th easiest schedule in the NFL. And I don't know how much stock I put into that because they're playing the 4th place schedule because they were the worst team in the NFL last season. But at least in that regard, they do have one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. Another interesting section of this schedule, Jake, the Titans will not leave Nashville in the month of November. They start with a November 2nd game against the Chargers, followed by their bye week, followed by 3 consecutive home games against Houston, Seattle, and Jacksonville. So they'll go on the road to Indianapolis on October 26th, and they will not travel again until Cleveland on December 7th. So a lot of home cooking for the Titans in that middle quarter of the season, that third quarter of the season.
Yeah, it's a very interesting layout of this schedule. You play 4 of your first 6 on the road, including that 3-game road trip, but then you really don't have to leave home all that much the rest of the season. You've got the 2 weeks in Cleveland and San Francisco, but out of trying to do quick math in my head, a 10-game stretch, you're playing 7 at home. That's pretty good for the Titans. That's why I do think late in the season, my bold prediction was they're going to win 5 out of their last 8 after the bye week. But there's a difference between winnable games and games that they will actually win. I think there are a lot of winnable games on this schedule, but you're probably still only going to win maybe half of those winnable games. So, but yes, having that stretch in the middle of the season where you don't have to travel, you got the buy in there, that could maybe spark the Titans to make a late run.
And as a general football fan, I hope you love the Chiefs because you're getting a lot of Chiefs in big time games. Week 1 against the Chargers in Brazil, week 2 in a Super Bowl rematch against the Eagles, and week 3 against the Giants on Sunday Night Football, against the Ravens in week 4 on CBS's prime afternoon window, Jaguars on Monday Night Football in week 5, back on Sunday Night Football against the Lions in week 6. So a heaping helping of the Kansas City Chiefs. So what Chiefs fatigue? Remember, we talked a lot about that during the Super Bowl. Like, aren't we tired of seeing the Chiefs? Well, the NFL certainly isn't, because they're going to be on every national game they could be basically the first half of the season.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I think it was Mahomes who complained about having to play on Christmas, and the NFL said, "You want to complain about that? Guess what? You're playing on Thanksgiving too this year."
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, you'll never see your family on either of those holidays, probably as long as you play football.
That's what I forget who put it out there, but somebody tweeted out on X yesterday, if you get drafted by the Chiefs, just say goodbye to your family because you're not going to see them very much.
That's true. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans schedule. We'll also get Teron Davenport's thoughts on the Titans schedule and much more for the TD Power Hour starting next. 615-737-1025. If you have questions for Teron, you can text us, you can call us. We will leave the lines open for you at 615-737-1025. Adam Vingan, Jake Lyman. This is Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. Adam Mingan and Jake Lyman in today for Jared Stillman, who will return tomorrow at 2 o'clock. But it's time for the TD Power Hour. Teron Davenport, of course, is here. Hello, Teron.
What's going on?
All right. Let's get your schedule hot takes, Teron Davenport. That's what everybody wants to know.
Yeah. Well, you can read it. It's on ESPN.
I did see that.
No, I look, man. I think the big thing is what stands out to me is week 3 through 8. You have 3 divisional games, and it's a home and home against the Colts, September 24th or 21st, rather. Excuse me, Deja, my daughter Deja's birthday. But that's the first one, and then October 26th, the second one against the Colts. So that'll be something to watch. Along with that stretch, you got a couple West Coast trips, right? So it looks like they're probably going to go back and forth, back-to-back weeks, Arizona, and then turn around and go to Las Vegas. That's going to be an interesting stretch. I like the fact that, you get to see a big test for Cam Ward right from the jump, right? That Broncos defense is no joke, and they got better with the people that they signed and drafted. So, and Hufanga, Talua Hufanga, and Dre Greenlaw, and then obviously drafting Jahdae Barron, and with Vance Joseph, back in Denver running the defense. That's a good thing for them. So it's going to be a tough stretch, right? The Texans are always a good team. And then you got, even put in that week 7, you got the emotional game against the Patriots. And, I'm sure that Brian Callahan will not say he has it circled, but trust that was circled. So that's a pretty cool stretch, week 3 through week 8.
I like the matchup in week 1, Teron. I like that Cam Ward is being thrown right into the fire, so to speak. A road game, and you'll hear plenty about the altitude in Denver and all of that stuff, which happens whenever a team that doesn't play in Denver regularly plays in Denver. But as you mentioned, that Broncos defense is fierce. They led the NFL in sacks last season. They've got the reigning defensive player of the year in the secondary. I love the idea of Cam Ward, as I said, being thrown right into the fire in his first NFL start.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the best secondary. I mean, Houston has an argument that they can make, but that's probably going to be the best secondary the Titans face all year, so it's definitely a good thing. And it's almost like, hey, man, it only gets better from here. You know what I mean?
That's true. You get that tough test out of the way. And I did see Titans are doing 2 joint practices, right? Joint practices on both those road trips to Tampa and Atlanta. So maybe that's kind of how you can, dip his toes in the water a little bit. You're going to get a lot of best on best reps over those 2 weeks. And maybe he doesn't have to play a ton in the preseason games, but it's not going to be his first time going out there and facing the starters on an NFL team when he takes the field in Denver on September 7th.
Right. Yeah. So that's going to be something else to consider, getting to have those joint practices and that, intense periods where, they run low red zone, they run third down, they run blitz period, all of this. And these are things that Cam Ward is going to have to see more and more. Now, we'll see how the Falcons, their defense is, they drafted the 2 young pass rushers, and we'll see how that works. But it's going to be a really good early test. And even you look at the Falcons, right? I mean, A.J. Terrell, that's going to be good to see Calvin Ridley and those guys. The young receivers go against them as well.
So you mentioned with that 3-game road trip early in the season, the Titans are one of 3 teams, as is my understanding, who have a 3-game road trip this season. The Patriots and the Ravens, if I'm not mistaken, are the other 2. You said that the Titans plan on going to Arizona, coming home, and going back to Las Vegas. I seem to recall several years ago, I think Mike Mularkey might have been the coach at the time, the Titans had a West Coast road trip, and they stayed. It
was, Cardinals and 49ers. They stayed out there.
Yeah.
So what are the pros and cons of staying out on the West Coast versus coming and going?
Well, the pros are, you think about all the equipment. It's funny, I was telling my girlfriend about this last night. There's a lot of equipment that gets packed.
Yes.
Right? These guys, they need their helmets during practice, just the same as they need them in the game, obviously. So you got all of that equipment. You got to box that up and put it in a truck and they ride the 18-wheeler across country. That's a pretty big effort, you know. And then shout out to the equipment guys and everyone there that makes this happen, because trust me, it is not easy. So for them to, you know, drive there to Arizona, drive back, and then turn around and drive to Vegas and drive, like, that's a lot of driving, a lot of logistics that has to be worked out. So that's obviously a pro to not have to do that. Then you know, the con is you don't get to sleep in your own bed. Like, we all like to, our
That is true.
mattresses are to the exact firmness that we want and everything. You know what I mean? So you don't get to sleep in your bed. And then you also look at some of these guys that may have extra things that they do for recovery. You got the chambers that some of the guys do. You got even, like, you look at some of these local shops like Arete, you know what I mean, where guys like to go there. Now, what happens if you go there and Adam Bobo is not there because he's in whatever city Derrick Henry's in now? You know what I mean? So there's a lot that goes to it as far as breaking up that routine. And then you do have, it's funny because, like, all the traveling back and forth to the West Coast I used to do, the time zone change didn't affect me, but some people it will affect. So now you got a 2-hour time change and it's a little bit different, you know. So there's a lot that could be good both ways.
You got those 5 road games in the first 8 weeks, but then you have a month where the Titans don't leave Nashville. 4 home games in a bye week.
Mm-hmm.
Could that be kind of a reset for Cam Ward, where it's like, hey, you've got 2 months, you're going to be on the road, you're going to be facing a lot of tough teams, but then you get a stretch of home games where, yeah, the Chargers are a playoff team, Texans are a playoff team, but it's not like you're facing the Chiefs and the Bills and the Ravens. It's a gettable stretch where you don't have to travel at all.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to have the Chiefs and the 49ers later in that year. You come off the bye going against the Texans, right? We just talked about the Broncos and their really good secondary. Well, the Texans, you know, Derek Stingley Jr. is one of the best corners in the league, right? Don't sleep on Jalen Petrie. I mean, they're deep, right? So that's going to be, if I'm not mistaken, they drafted a corner. I have to double check. But you're coming out of the bye, you're going against the Texans. It's still, like you said, a little bit of home cooking, right? And hopefully at that point, you know, for the sake of the fans, that you guys will have something to go watch and be excited about going to watch this team, you know. So we'll see what happens. It's so early, like there's no real pattern that has been set up off of the bye last year, rather. You know, we know what the record was, but you look at some of these coaches like Andy Reid, who coming out of the bye, like they're so tough to beat.
Right.
So maybe that's something that you could see started with this one.
One other thing about the schedule at first glance, Teron, if I recall correctly, at the end of last season, most of the AFC South games were clustered at the end of the season. This season, they seem to be more spread out. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, you think? If I recall that correctly, I feel like it was like 4 of the last 6 games of last season were against AFC South opponents.
Yeah, it was backloaded. It's spread out, and that's another thing I looked at. You got 2 5-week stretches where you got 3 games against you know, your AFC South opponents. So that's something else to watch, right? And I mean, we talked about the first one, and then you look at the back half. You know, you got the Jaguars, Texans, a home and home against the Jaguars, and you look at that week 18. I know a lot of people had an issue about the Titans not having a primetime game. Well, I remember in 2023, you know, the tail end of the 2022 season, that game was flexed into prime
Saturday
time.
night.
You know what I mean? And that's a part of why they have the schedule always end against a in division opponent, and that's something that could end up happening. So you could have a primetime game, and your guy Cam Ward will not be the first quarterback selected number 1 and not play under the lights.
By my quick math, 5 of the final 7 games of the season last season were against AFC South opponents.
Yeah, I remember it being backloaded. Good point.
And it feels like it's been 2 or 3 years in a row where the Titans have had those weird stretches where you play the same team twice in 3 weeks. So it's nice not to see that. Were you surprised to see the Titans not get a single primetime game? Because there are games on this schedule that I think would have some intrigue for TV. The Patriots game has been mentioned with Mike Vrabel returning. The Chiefs, I mean, Mahomes versus the number 1 pick, who people have made the comparison to some of the things that Cam Ward does. We mentioned the Browns as if Shedeur Sanders is starting. Maybe that's something. Like, there are some storylines. The Jaguars, number 1 pick versus number 2 pick.
Yeah.
Were you surprised that they didn't get a single one?
I thought they would have gotten one, and the one I thought would have been was the Patriots one, just because there's so many storylines to that. But you make a good point about the Chiefs, right? Eric Morris, in that day, he's probably going to have to take a flight, because that was Cam's head coach at Incarnate Word, and then the OC at Washington State. He's now the head coach at North Texas, but he also was the OC at Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes.
Wow.
So that's going to be something for him to, have to go check out, but that could have been a primetime game for sure. You think about it, right? Cam Ward obviously is a guy that you say, hey, you talk to somebody who isn't a typical Titans fan, and you say, hey, name a single Titan player, and they'll probably say Cam Ward. But after that, even though Jeffrey Simmons is very good, you can't really say, hey, so-and-so played, and
there's some people who
recognize
probably would still say Levis too. Like that would be the first name that comes to their mind.
Yeah, because of the commercials, right? The
Well, think about it. We were talking about the schedule release videos yesterday. The 2 times the Titans were kind of made fun of, it was Will Levis.
Yeah.
So he's still kind of the face of the franchise at this point until Cam Ward hits the football field.
615-737-1025. If you've got questions for Teron Davenport, you can call us. You can text us at 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, when should we expect Cam Ward's breakout game? Well, Teron Davenport answered that question in the story he mentioned on the ESPN.com, and we'll talk about it coming up next. Jake Lyman, Adam Bing, and Teron Davenport, Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Adam Vingan, Jake Lyman. It's the TD Power Hour, starring Teron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation, Titans reporter. Any questions for Teron? Call us, text us, 615-737-1025. So, Teron, you mentioned a story you wrote breaking down the Titans schedule on ESPN.com. And one of the questions that you answered is, what will Cam Ward's breakout game be? And you said his best opportunity will be week 8 against the Colts. Why did you pick out that game?
Yeah, I picked that game out because that'll be the first time he will have seen the same defense twice. So there's a great opportunity there for them to, Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz, Bo Hardegree, for them to work out some of the things that needed to be done to adjust. Obviously, you do those adjustments in game, but it's even a bigger adjustment when you have a whole week to game plan. Then you see what happens. But also, you look at this Colts secondary. I think it is one of, on paper, right? Because you always have a player that emerges or something like that. But on paper, this is one of the secondaries that I think the Titans could take advantage of. They did add Travarius Ward from the 49ers, and obviously prior to that, he was with the Chiefs. This pass defense, as far as yards were concerned, 26th in the league, right? So 6th from the bottom. They were giving up 228 yards per game. So there are opportunities, but bigger picture, circle it back to Cam Ward. This will be week 8, so he will have had 7 games under his belt. And again, like we say, he's facing the same defense twice, but things tend to slow down a bit for you. And when they slow down as you play the game more, then you're able to do better things and, make things happen. So I think that's a good opportunity there. Also, I mean, look, it'll give Brian Callahan, he will have had some time to really get a good grasp on making it, Miami Part 2, right? As far as the playbook's concerned.
I know a lot of Titans fans were looking forward to specifically the date that Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots come to town.
Yeah.
And we talked about that game when we saw it was on the schedule, and we've had plenty of callers and texters say, Brian Callahan better hope that game's early in the season, because who knows what'll happen if Mike Vrabel comes in here and they lose what Amy Adams Strunk is capable of doing. What do you make of the timing of that game, week 7? So the Titans will have had 6 games to get into a bit of a rhythm. What do you like about what do you think I should say about the placement of the Patriots game in the schedule?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like an ideal spot, to be honest with you. It's sandwiched between a West Coast game and then the game where we said Cam Ward should be able to break out. So a breakout game against the Colts could kind of eliminate what could be a stench from that Patriots game. Because look, man, like you look at their secondary, I forgot they signed Carlton Davis. Now you got Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez, like they got something going up front too. You look at Milton Williams, Harold Land, it's going to be a tough game, but with it being there, it's not early to where it kind of sets the tone, but it's also not too late to where it ends you on a bad note. So there's some time for a recovery to happen if they were to lose that.
Our favorite Indianapolis Colts fan, Indy Ben, has texted in. He says, Ward and Bynum are significant upgrades for Indy, as that was their biggest weakness on defense. Don't think their D will be a cakewalk at all, and their new DC should be nothing but an improvement over the incompetent Gus Bradley.
Oh, the optimism of the not even preseason, the offseason.
All 32 teams still have a chance at the Super Bowl in May.
Yeah.
So,
and look, that's not the short change. Like I think Travarius Ward is a big, upgrade. We'll see with Bynum. He's a solid player. Obviously, one of the better nickel guys. But let's face the facts. The secondary is not exactly on the par with the other ones that they're facing.
Let's go to Dan on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Dan, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, gentlemen. Thank you for taking my call. I had kind of a 2-point comment that I wanted to make, and it was based off what you guys had mentioned just maybe 20 minutes ago about, seems like you guys are already convinced that Cam is going to start in week 1. And something that I followed through the Titans over the last several years is kind of their trend with their first game of the season being
a very
Not
ugly
good.
game.
Yeah.
And even going back to Mike Vrabel's tenure, I mean, I think he was 2-4 maybe in those first games of the year. And, people argued about and criticized whether that was, playing people in preseason games and OTAs and practice. But I'm not convinced that Ward would be the best option to start week 1. And I think that might be with the coach, having to make that determination whether he's putting somebody in a situation he knows if he is capable or incapable of performing. And to me, if it's the Broncos, I'm already, I'm not an expert, but I don't think he is. So maybe that would be harmful to his long-term growth, and possibly using one of those other QB options, because those guys are, they're not invested in their long-term with the Titans. So I was just kind of interested to see what you guys had to say on that.
Thank you for the call, Dan. What do you think, Duran?
Yeah, Dan, I feel exactly what he's saying, but my thing is this: if you get into worrying about ruining a guy because of the competition that he's going against, you don't have the guy. You know what I mean?
You don't draft him if you're worried about that.
You don't have your guy. So I think anytime you pick a guy number 1 overall, you don't fear the competition that he's going against. You look at it the way we said earlier in the show. Hey, look, this is a good early test.
Right.
And what happens with a test? You know where you are, right? It's a GPS game right off the bat, where, okay, Vance Joseph is going to attack. He's going to mix things up in the secondary. How are you going to react to that? Seeing it real time. That's really what it's going to be.
I wanted to ask you a question that Cam asked me, and I kind of skipped over it on accident, but I thought you would be better equipped to answer it. He called in and he was talking about, you look at some of the quarterbacks that Cam Ward is going to play over the course of the season. He's going to play Matthew Stafford. He's going to play Patrick Mahomes. He's going to play CJ Stroud a couple of times. He's going to play Justin Herbert. And he was asked about, should there be concern that Cam going up against these high-level quarterbacks may try to show out versus, to help make a name for himself. I'm butchering the question, Cam. I'm sorry. But that was the essence. Like, should there be a concern with Cam Ward going up against those high-level quarterbacks?
Here's the thing that you got to love about Cam, and it's not something from my own experience. It's something from the experience of Xavier Restrepo, Elijah Arroyo, Sam Brown. He said Cam just wants to win. If putting up stats leads to that, cool. But if doing other things he has to do to help the team win, even better. That's the bottom line. Like and even take for instance, when Warren Moon, you got one of the best men to ever throw a daggone football saying, hey, I want you to wear my number. And what did Cam say? Oh, well, it's just a number. It's not really. If you're not concerned about measuring up to a Hall of Famer wearing the same number, trust me, playing against CJ Stroud is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. But I don't think he's going to be concerned about that. He just wants to win.
Yeah, the callers and people who say Cam Ward shouldn't start week 1, this guy played 5 years of college football. This isn't Trey Lance or Anthony Richardson who played 12 games of college football in their career. Like he's ready to play in the pros. TD, I want to get your thoughts on the end of this season. I've been saying I think this year is less about the wins and losses than it is about, do we see Cam Ward developing towards the end of the season where you think that he can hit the ground running in year 2? Does it seem like the end of the schedule kind of sets up for that? You got a couple of big tests against 49ers and the Chiefs in there, but also some games where you probably feel pretty good about his chance to go out and gain some confidence against teams like the Browns and the Saints and the Jaguars.
I hear what you're saying, but this is a team that was 3-14.
Oh, I get that.
They cannot feel comfortable about anything.
Teams are building confidence against the Titans too.
Right. So I follow you. I think facing some of these opponents, right? You're ending it against a division opponent. You got a home with them. The Browns, yeah, it's a good mate. Look, man, I get to see my guy Shador, and I can measure myself against whatever. You know what I mean? But I don't think it necessarily is any different from any other stretch of the schedule. It's just one of those times where it's like, hey, every time you go out there, you got to level up and do what you do.
Do you think Shador Sanders is starting for the Browns by the time the Titans face them at the end of the season?
I think so. I don't know the whole, because I know a lot of people, they get on me about the Shador thing. Like it's funny, like you can't like a prospect. You know what I mean? I think he does eventually become the starter, especially at that point, that late. I think he will have shown some things in practice to where, hey, you have a lot going here. Let's see what you could do and roll it into 2026.
615-737-1025. We'll continue the conversation about the Titans with Teron Davenport coming up next. If you have questions for Teron, you can call and text us at 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Adam Bingen. This is Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Jake Lyman, Adam Bingen, Teron Davenport. It's the TD Power Hour until 5 o'clock. Call us, text us, 615-737-1025. The YouTube chat, as always, is hopping on Stillman & Company. Shane said, Cam is a competitor. What about a bowl game after he got his stats? And look, no disrespect to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, guys, but you know, the reports are, if I recall correctly, Teron, the reports are that was always the plan for Miami in that game, that Cam Ward was going to play for one half. And there, I can't remember who reported it, but it may have been Albert Breer, that Cam Ward was if Cam Ward wanted to play because he knew that if he sat out, more of his teammates would sit out. He wanted everyone to be involved, so that's why he played.
He was also trying to break the all-time
passing
touchdown
record.
pass.
Yeah,
record.
he set the all-time combined FBS and FCS.
Right.
And then he, by the way, single season 3 different passing records for Miami too. So yeah, I mean, I'm not mad at him for that.
I always encourage people, because some of these people that don't think Cam is ready, just go watch the Pop-Tarts Bowl film. Watch the first half that he played, and I think your tune will change about Cam Ward because it's a laser show.
Yeah, watch the Florida game. I mean, there were some throws, like he made one, and the throw, it was just dumb. Like he's running to his left, and he has the receiver going right to left, and the receiver flashes in the screen, and you just see him running to his left, and and this dart to the dude at the back of the end zone, and it's a touchdown, and you're just looking at that like.
And he did the same thing against Louisville too. Like almost the exact same throw back of the end zone.
It's crazy how some of the throws he made. I don't think that there's any way he's not ready. But hey, look, man, like we'll see. There's still a lot of football that has to be played, a lot of learning that he has to have. So we'll see.
Fairly or unfairly, just because of all of the talk leading into the draft about how Cam Ward wouldn't be among the top 5 quarterbacks drafted if he were in the class last year, and nobody had him on the top of their big boards entering the draft. There's going to be a lot of skepticism about Cam Ward. Again, fairly or unfairly, but that is going to continue until the games start. So that's just the world we're living in when it comes to Cam Ward.
Yeah, I mean, look, you because you have some of these recent examples, right? You got Patrick Mahomes, you got Jalen Hurts, you have, and then you could dial the clock back and Aaron Rodgers. These are all guys who waited. But guess what? You got Jaden Daniels, who you saw. You got CJ Stroud, who you saw. You know what I mean? There are guys who hit the ground running. It wasn't too big for them, and they went out there and they balled out. And I think that's what Cam's going to be able to do.
Speaking of hitting the ground running, I want to ask you about the importance of Tony Pollard when it comes to Cam Ward's success. Derek talks about this all the time, about how important it is to have a solid running game for a rookie quarterback. He brings up his experience in Baltimore with Joe Flacco in 2008. Now, the Ravens had an outstanding defense too, but they had a solid running game with LeRon McClain and Willis McGahee and a young Ray Rice. He's talked about how important that was for Flacco. Tony Pollard was a 1,000-yard back last season. And I was reading an interesting story on ESPN written before last season when the Commanders had just drafted Jaden Daniels, about how the previous season with Sam Howell quarterback, they had the fewest rushing attempts in the NFL. They passed the ball like 65% of the time. Now, I know that Jaden Daniels can run too, but their pass play percentage went from highest in the league to near the bottom of the league last season with Jaden Daniels. Again, I know Jaden Daniels can run as well, but the importance of Tony Pollard and making sure that Cam Ward will be comfortable in his rookie season.
Yeah, and just to your point about the Washington situation, they ran the ball a lot earlier, but then started to open it up as the year went on, as Jaden Daniels was able to absorb more and more and more. And
he talked about that with Mike Borgonzi in a recent story.
Correct. And D. Mace is definitely right. I mean, you want to be able to turn around and hand the ball off to the running back, not only to be able to get those yards and balance it out, but also to be able to open some things up in the passing lane. When you have that rushing attack, I mean, look at how many times they ran play action strike route with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, right? It was always open because as a linebacker, they play action to a guy like that. Like, you're naturally going to take a couple steps forward and you got that strike route going right behind it, and boom, now you got something cooking. I'm not saying that Tony Pollard will have the same effect that Derrick Henry had, because we know that's not true, but that balance is something that's really going to help out the young QB. And then also, I think if you look at the Chargers, and I know it's off topic, but adding Amarion Hampton to that pass attack, and we know that Jim Harbaugh, he likes to go shoe to shoe and run the football, that's going to help Justin Herbert a lot.
So you mentioned that at the beginning of last season, the Commanders relied a little bit more on the running game and then opened things up as the season progressed. Was there a specific time frame of the season where that change started to occur?
I can't exactly put a finger on it because I didn't follow it that closely. I mean, maybe you could, kind of look at some of his stats as the year went along, just as far as the pass attempts and gauge that out a little bit better. But it definitely was something that happened. Like you saw him start to pass, and it just gets so much more. They continue to mix in the RPOs and things like that, and option runs for him to take advantage.
The offensive line, which was, I mean, it's been horrible for 3 years now. Seems like almost universally everybody is feeling better about the offensive line heading into this season. How do we feel about them kind of getting adjusted to some new positions here? You're going to have two newcomers on the starting offensive line with Dan Moore and Kevin Zeitler, and then J.C. Latham flipping back.
Mm-hmm.
Denver, Adam mentioned, they led the league in sacks last year. L.A., Jared Verse was the defensive rookie of the year. Do we feel like that's going to be a little bit of a tough start for that new offensive line, or do you think they can settle in relatively quickly?
Oh, it's going to be tough because Vance Joseph, he's going to blitz too. Like, he's going to mix things up. So I think, I don't know if you guys have seen J.C. Latham, his social media, but man, he looks like
Slim.
he refined his body, and he's going to come back in even better shape. So that's going to be interesting seeing how it works. But you're right, he's flipping over to the right side. I always felt he could play left, but he is a natural right tackle. So you got that, and then you mix in Dan Moore Jr. I don't know what to expect from him, honestly. I don't know, because I'm really curious. Like, obviously he's 26. He's got, he's been able to hold off first round picks for 2 of the last 4 years. Maybe Bill Callahan and he working together, like, you could get more, but I wouldn't expect like Pro Bowl level play. I think it still remains to be seen there, but you got your bookends, and then you mix in Zeitler. Yeah, that's Zeitler signing is probably one of the more underrated ones, but it brings that veteran presence that I know what to do. I've been here, done that, and it brings that to them.
With the Dan Moore signing, when it first happened, people found the number of sacks he allowed last season with the Steelers, which I believe was at or near the top of the league.
Mm-hmm.
And it led to a fascinating chicken or egg type story. Well, was he beat so many times, or were his quarterbacks holding on to the ball too long? I mean, when we're talking about sacks allowed by offensive linemen, I think there's a lot of context that needs to be involved in that, just other than just he allowed 16 and a half sacks or whatever the number was.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a lot of contact. And actually, it was Quinshawn Jenkins that went to the Chargers. My bad, not Amari Hampton. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's something that definitely has to happen for him.
615-737-1025. If you have questions for Tehran, let us know. 615-737-1025. Amarion Hampton did go to the Chargers.
Oh, I got it right.
You did get it right.
I always get those two confused for some reason. I don't know why, but
give yourself credit, Tehran. That's why you're sharp as a tack. 615-737-1025. If you have questions for Tehran, call us, text us. Jake Lyman, Adam Vinga, Tehran Davenport. This is Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. It's TD Power Hour. So if you've got questions for Teron Davenport, call us, text us, 615-737-1025. Let's go to our text line. Ryan says, Teron, do you think the development of the young tight ends is as important, more important, or less important than the development of the young middle linebackers? I'm really excited to see Cedric Gray and Gunnar Helm personally.
That's a good question. I think I would probably that's a good question because you look last year, one of the big issues for the Titans defense was their run defense. And that's crazy because we know what Jeffrey Simmons says, right?
Nobody runs on the
Titans, but there were some teams definitely doing that last year. Detroit Lions. But if you look at this,
Don't forget that Colts game too.
Yeah. I mean, hey,
there were plenty. A lot of them.
Yeah. But a lot of that happened because the wall wasn't formed, but then they didn't swarm to the football at the second level, right? And that goes on, the inside backers. So that is something. But I think right now, this team, like they're going to live and die with the development of Cam Ward. So anything that contributes to that, I think that is going to take precedence over everything else. So you look at Gunnar Helm, you look at Chiga Conquo continuing to, find some way of to be consistent. Josh Wiley, I don't know, but I tell you, don't forget about David Martin Robinson too. DMR, he's someone else. So yeah, that is going to be important because Cam, what he likes to throw between the hashes, right? You know what I mean? In that middle of the field, what better way to find those matchups than with your tight ends who typically work that?
One texter says, TD, if Cam Ward struggles in early season, do you stick with him or do you bring in Levis and let Cam learn on the sidelines?
No, I think you go ahead and let him continue to learn, right? And, they have the saying, you could get a lesson out of a loss. And I think that is true. Obviously, you don't want to take the L's, but use it as a lesson. So it will give him opportunities to see some things that he may not have seen in college. And it's also an opportunity just to get that experience, just to be out there. And I think the only way to get better at football is by playing football.
I think the days, anecdotally at least, it feels like the days of the top quarterback drafted sitting on the bench, those days are behind us. If you're going to draft a quarterback number 1 overall, he's probably playing.
Yeah, and you know why? Because there is literally no time to be wasted.
Right.
Brian Callahan has to go. Although I believe that drafting Cam should lead to committing to Callahan this year or next year at the least, but we know how this league works. It's not for long, so he could be going quickly.
And I talked about this with Willie and Derek the other day, and it was astounding to hear that 5 of the past 7 quarterbacks drafted number 1 overall have had their coaches fired in season in their rookie years, including each of the past 3, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, and Trevor Lawrence. Now, Urban Meyer in Jacksonville, that was a special case.
Different situation.
But 5 of the past 7, the only 2 that didn't have their coaches fired in season their rookie years, Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow. I found that to be fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, all situations are different.
But I agree with you on the idea of marrying Brian Callahan to Cam Ward for at least a couple of seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you want to make it comfortable.
A question like that about bringing in Levis, is that the reason Levis isn't going to be on the team when the season starts? Because if it's Brandon Allen as his backup and Cam struggling, I don't think you're going to hear calls to bring Allen in. But I'm sure there will be people who say Levis should come in if Ward struggles. And that's why you maybe try and move off him if you can at the end of training camp.
I mean, I don't think they're really concerned about that, right? The calls for him or any of that stuff. I don't think the organization is concerned about that. I think at that point, it'll be, all right, creating some value for Levis and moving him. Because, I mean, look, like, I'm sure there would have been a facet of the fan base that would have called for Malik Willis throughout all the bad quarterback play, right?
After that and pick 6 in Chicago, probably.
They often say that the most popular player on a football team is the backup quarterback.
Yeah, and that's with the fan base, but not the team.
Of course, yes, with the fans, I should say. One texter says, have you seen if Tavondre Sweat is in shape?
I haven't seen T Sweat, but I do know, just talking to him before they left for the offseason, he told me that he was going to train with Dylan Bradley over at D1, that's Jeffrey Simmons' brother. and he played for the Vikings for a bit. He tore his knee and couldn't end up, making the roster, et cetera. There's a story. I did a story about that a couple years ago. But anyway, long story short, I do think he's going to be in shape. He told me that there were some diet things that he was going to change. And then also, like I said, training with Jeff and training with Dylan Bradley, I think that will help.
I think, last season entering this time of year, there were concerns about Tavondre Sweat's weight, I guess you could say. But I feel like he dispelled those concerns with his play. He played 2/3 of the defensive snaps during the course of the season.
Yeah,
it wasn't second most among rookie.
Right,
DTs.
it wasn't a concern to me over the course of the season.
Yeah, it was something that got kind of thrown away quickly. And shout out to him for being able to play at that size and the amount of reps that he played, and going hard on him too.
One texter says, Tehran, have you gotten to interact or see much of Bones Fossil? Anything stand out already?
I wanted to see more of him, but they were on the middle field, and the way it's set up on the three fields, the middle field is essentially right in front of the weight room, and we aren't able to go in front of the weight room. So it's harder to see the middle field. And then also, obviously, with Cam Ward being there, a lot of eyes are on Cam Ward, and then you throw in Restrepo and Ayo Manor and DK there too. Like, you're kind of focusing on that. But no, I haven't gotten to.
What do you think about that addition? The special teams were, of course, a concern last season. You bring in a veteran special teams coach. I know Derek has spoken highly of Bones Fossil. What are your impressions of him in terms of the experience on that unit?
It's much needed. And he has a knack for finding guys to contribute. You got to love that. This organization, if I'm not mistaken, 2012 was the last time they had a punt return for a touchdown.
Jeez.
The last kickoff that was returned for a touchdown was 2020. And you know how it happened? It was an onside kick that your boy AJ Brown caught and said, you know what? I got my get somewhere shoes. I'm going. And he scored. So, yeah, his presence is definitely, you look at, Turpin that they got in Dallas, and he's a good player, but finding that guy and then devising ways to allow him to impact that way, yeah, I think it's going to help them a lot.
I have to imagine that every other team in the NFL has a punt return touchdown since the last time the Titans do. If it was 2012.
I would tend to believe that to be the case.
Are they the last one? Speaking of returner, there's not really a guy who you look at and say, that's the returner this year. Like the last couple of years, everyone thought Kyle Phillips was going to step into that role. Do you think maybe it's a guy like James Prochet? Could he make the roster as the returner, or maybe one of these rookies? I know DK and Restrepo both have return experience in college.
I think DK is going to be the guy. So when they went, it was DK, Restrepo, Virgil Lemons, TJ Sheffield. I think it was those four that were back there. But obviously, those are of the rookies once everything else comes into play. But I think DK is going to get the opportunity. I would say he has the inside track right now, but I'm curious to see how it works. Prochet was really good at SMU. I don't know, he got beat up by Tylan Wallace with the Ravens. You know what I mean? So I will see, but I think DK.
Joey from Bellevue actually asked, TD, you mentioned Lemons, an undrafted corner, possibly returning kicks. Now that they cut him, who do you think could fill that role? Well, you just answered that question.
Yeah, DK. And I mean, look, I'm going to say the name, and it always invokes a lot of venom. But, once he comes back, Traylon Burks is another guy they had back there in kick return, not punt return, but kick return.
And Tajay Spears returns kicks too. So punts maybe DK, and then I think kicks, usually it's kind of a –
I want to say Bryce Oliver was back there too.
Yeah, that is true.
Here's the thing, though. I mentioned Restrepo. Like, if we'll see if he makes the 53-man. But if he's, one of those roster call-ups, if he doesn't make it, he's like an extra guy you could throw. But you're not going to get much return-wise.
The long snapper could catch him.
If you're in one of those situations where it's like, hey, I just need you to catch the ball, he's going to do that. So.
Tehran, great stuff as always, my friend. Another successful TD Power Hour. you'll be reunited with Jared next week. I know you're looking forward to
Oh, I
that.
can't wait, man. I know he's having a good time away. So
I wonder how tan he's going to be when he's on.
He better not come back looking like a hot dog at one of the darn. What's his place? What's the place he loves?
Oh man,
Daily something.
Oh, Twice Daily.
Twice Daily. He better
Yes.
not come back looking like one of those hot dogs. Rotate.
He might have to change the lighting in his virtual studio so he shows up.
Well, usually you're in here by yourself during the TD Power
look,
Hour,
man,
so we
three's
were happy
company.
to have you here with us.
Yes, sir.
615-737-1025. Speaking of Jared, as Jared always used to say, let the big dog eat. And the big dog, he's eating well after what contract he received yesterday. We'll get to that next. Jake Lyman, Adam Ving, and Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, your bank for small business. Adam Vingan and Jake Lyman here with you, taking you to Vanderbilt pregame, which begins at 5:45, first pitch at 6 between the Commodores and the Kentucky Wildcats. By the way, Joey from Bellevue on our text line, who asked Teron the question during TD Power Hour, also wants to know if I have a take on Willie's Waze experience this afternoon. Did you hear this?
I did.
Okay. All I will say is this. This is what happens when I don't do the show with Willie. He gets himself lost. Well, he didn't really get himself lost.
He just put in the wrong address,
yes,
right?
And was late to the show. So this is what happens when I don't do the show with Willie. He gets lost on his way to work. He's been coming here for only, 20 years. But good luck, good news for Willie, and I presume for all of you as well, that DVD will be reunited tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Our schedule will return to normal starting tomorrow at 6 a.m. with Robbie and Rex Road, 9 to 11 with Chase and Big Joe, DVD from 11 to 2. And, of course, the return of Jared Stillman at 2 o'clock. I can't wait to see Jared with his tan, or hopefully he doesn't look like a hot dog from Twice Daily, as Teron said on his way out the door. But, Jake, as Jared was fond of saying for many, many years, let the big dog eat. And boy, oh boy, did Derrick Henry eat yesterday when it was announced that he and the Ravens had agreed on a 2-year, $30 million contract that includes $25 million fully guaranteed over the next two seasons. It is the largest deal in NFL history for a running back over 30 years old. Here are some other just mind-boggling statistics on Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has rushed for 100-plus yards in half of his games over the past 5 seasons. 37 of 74 since 2020. Next on that list, Jonathan Taylor, 24 of 67. Nick Chubb, 19 of 53. Saquon Barkley, 17 of 61. And Josh Jacobs, 15 of 77.
He is a, ready for this, generational player. I know you're not allowed to say that.
That's banned on DVD. It's not banned on Stillman and Company, so I will allow it.
Me and D-Mace went through this earlier this week. But Derrick Henry is a generational player. Like, you don't see, he ran for over 1,900 yards last year at an age where most running backs are on the backside of their career. So Derrick Henry is one of a kind, and it stings a little bit to see those tweets of them saying Derrick Henry wanted to retire a Raven and this opens the door for him to do so. I think a lot of Titans fans hope that whenever his career is over, he'll sign a one-day contract with the Titans and retire as a Titan. But who knows? Maybe not. Maybe he wants to end as a Dirty Bird. Or no, Dirty Bird's the Falcons.
That's the Falcons.
As part of the flock out there.
Also, according to Over the Cap, Derrick Henry currently ranks 4th all-time in running back earnings. His new deal will bring him into the top 3. He's at $67.8 million. Ezekiel Elliott is at $75.8 million. Christian McCaffrey is at $81.2 million. And Adrian Peterson at $102.6 million. Which
is crazy because Derrick Henry signed the exact same extension with the Titans as Chris Johnson, 10 years apart. So it just shows you the running back market didn't grow very much, and still Derrick Henry, he's made a pretty good nest egg for himself over the past 10 years.
Was that a Ravens joke? Nest egg?
Ravens. It wasn't intentional, but we'll take credit for it.
Okay. So yesterday I subbed in for Caroline Fenton as the moderator for Jared versus Joe, except it was Joe versus Paul Koharski. And Joe, I should say, got mad at me for my ruling. As I said to Joe, there are no last 2-minute reports in Jared versus Joe. So if I made a mistake, I'm not owning up to it. You'll just have to take that L, Joe Rexroad. But one of the questions I asked Paul and Joe yesterday, so over the course of his career, Derrick Henry has averaged 1,428 rushing yards per 17 games. That means he would have to maintain that pace for at least 5 more seasons to become the NFL's all-time leading rusher. That seems unlikely, but Derrick Henry has been consistent in his durability, minus the 2021 season when he missed half the season because of, it was a foot injury, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
So It's unlikely that Derrick Henry overtakes Emmitt Smith as the NFL's all-time leading rusher, but I'm not going to say there's a 0% chance of it
Right.
happening.
It's not impossible because again, he's a freak of nature. Like he is unlike any running back that we've seen before. So I won't say it's impossible, but 5 more seasons, he's already over 30. I can't think of too many running backs who are running for 1,400 yards at age 35. If he had come on a little bit sooner and had supplanted DeMarco Murray, maybe completely in his second year in the league, instead of it taking 2 full years, and then there was the year where he had to split reps with Dion Lewis, and Dion Lewis was getting more touches than Derrick Henry until about the trade deadline. So if he had come on a little more quickly, there could have been an outside shot because it would only have been maybe 3 or 4 more big seasons from him, but it seems very unlikely.
If I recall correctly, he's roughly 3,500 yards behind Adrian Peterson for 5th. That's incredibly doable, I think, for Derrick Henry.
No, I think so. Because he may only have 2 more years where he's rushing for 1,200 plus yards, but you would think he'll have his Adrian Peterson years at the very end where he's bouncing around and, maybe throws a couple extra jerseys on and he'll run for 600 yards in a season. I think he'll catch AP.
His 1,921 rushing yards last season were the most by a running back in his age 30 or older season in NFL history. Tiki Barber had the previous record at 1,860 at age 30 in 2005. Curtis Martin, 1,697 in 2004. And Walter Payton, 1,684 in 1984. Anytime you have a record that's previously held by Walter Payton, that's pretty good company.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And he was overshadowed a little bit last year by Saquon Barkley because of the historic things that Saquon did. But Derrick Henry's got to get props because I think not all Titans fans, there were a lot of Titans fans that wanted to bring him back. But I think there was a majority of Titans fans that said, you know what, it's time to move on. Derrick Henry's probably on the back 9 of his career, and he doesn't fit the vision of what the Titans are doing anymore. He went out and almost ran for 2,000 yards. So got to give props to Derrick Henry.
That was my next point. That last home game for Derrick Henry, he takes the microphone at Nissan Stadium. He thanks the Titans fans for supporting him for so many years. It was the right send off for Derrick Henry. And I know there are probably a lot of Titans fans that are like, I can't believe the Titans got rid of Derrick Henry. Look what he's doing in Baltimore. I would say that most Titans fans, as you said, Jake, were understanding of the situation where Derrick Henry was in his career, where the Titans appeared to be going. So I think it would be a bit of revisionist history if Titans fans are ruining the decision by the organization to move on from Derrick Henry.
Yeah, it made no sense for either party to sign another extension here. Derrick Henry had accomplished about as much as he could here and wanted to go chase a Super Bowl. And he wasn't going, as we've seen, he was not going to win a Super Bowl here with the Titans in the few years that he had left. So he wanted to go chase a championship. And I think the Titans wanted to change their identity up a little bit. I think they realized that when he's not at his best, when he's 75% of prime Derrick Henry, he's not going to carry them to playoff wins like he did back in 2019. And so I think it made sense for both teams. Again, revisionist history, you can look back and say, oh, how stupid are the Titans for letting Derrick Henry walk? But at that point, it made sense.
One texter says, Andrew from Dover says, would you rather be at Vrabel's return game or Henry's? Personally, I say Henry, long live the king. Well, the Ravens are not on the Titans schedule this season, so you'll have to wait for that game. But of course, the Patriots will be here on October 19th and week 7. That'll be a really interesting game. I'm curious about the lead up to that game.
Right.
With Mike Vrabel returning, he'll get a lot of questions about it. He'll downplay it, as is his wont. He won't really entertain many of those questions. But there will be a lot of juice in the stands. I feel like I'm really curious about that game. And as Teron said, I think the placement of the game is good for the Titans. They'll have that 3-game road trip out of the way. It's early in the season. We looked at the Patriots schedule at the beginning of the show. They could be a 500 team by the time they come to Nissan Stadium. But there's going to be, to me, I think that is the most anticipated game of the season by far.
I agree. And when Derrick Henry returns here, it's going to be there will be no questions. It'll be a celebration of Derrick Henry. I think Titans fans will welcome him back with open arms. They're going to want to beat him on the football field, but it's going to be in honor of Derrick Henry. I'm interested to see how Titans fans welcome back, for lack of a better term, Mike Vrabel. Will there be a video tribute to Mike Vrabel on the video board for what he did here? And will Titans fans cheer him or will they boo him? I think there are some questions there.
So I've come up with this ranking system several years ago. The first time that Ryan Johansson went back to Columbus as a member of the Nashville Predators, they did not give him any sort of acknowledgement. No video, no, still shot on the scoreboard. Welcome back, Ryan Johansson.
Right.
So I have these sort of rankings of tribute videos. You have the minute and a half long one with the music and
That's what Derrick Henry will
and
get.
the stirring images and their work in the community. And then you have the Ryan Johansson, which is no acknowledgement at all. I say that Mike Vrabel gets the middle ground. They'll say, "Welcome back, Mike Vrabel," on the scoreboard. There won't be a video; it'll just be like an image, and they'll put it on the scoreboard, and he'll probably just go like, "Yeah." He probably won't. Probably won't even acknowledge it. That's my guess.
He probably won't acknowledge it. I'm interested to see what the crowd does because Mike Vrabel did have a lot of success here. He took the Titans to the AFC Championship for the first time in almost 20 years. He won a playoff game for the first time in 15 plus years and got them to a number one seed in the AFC. So he did a lot for this team, but obviously it wasn't the greatest departure. I'm interested to see on October 19th whether Titans fans welcome him back or if there's some booze mixed in there.
One texter says, the Ravens are the Ratbirds. Thank you very much.
Not the Dirty Birds.
Henry wasn't doing anything with this O-line. Would have been rough to watch. I'm glad he got to go shine, even if it was for the Ratbirds. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on Derrick Henry's new contract. It's a big one, and he deserves it. But coming up next, there's been a lot of draft lottery talk around here. Of course, because the NHL draft lottery was a week and a half ago. The NBA draft lottery was earlier this week. And of course, it's led people to wonder about whether the NFL should adopt this. And one well-known ESPN personality made his case for an NFL draft lottery. We will play that for you coming up next. Jake Lyman, Adam Vingan. This is Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Adam Vingan and Jake Lyman here with you. So it's draft lottery season. The NHL draft lottery, it was only a week and a half ago, but it feels like it was a month ago. But the NHL draft lottery was last Monday, if I recall correctly. The Predators had 11.5% chance of attaining the number one pick. The opposite happened. They dropped 2 spots. And the New York Islanders, who had a 3.5% chance of winning the number one pick, ultimately did. And then you had the NBA draft lottery earlier this week, where the Dallas Mavericks, who had, I believe, a 1.8% chance of winning the lottery, did. And congratulations to Dallas. Take care of Cooper Flagg for me. Looking forward to seeing him with the Mavericks. That'll be a fun team. But, of course, it's led to conversations about the NFL and the way that the NFL does things. And Mike Greenberg on Get Up on ESPN made his case for the NFL to adopt a draft lottery.
I would like right now to pitch what I believe might be the highest rated show in the history of sports television. Here it is, a TV special where the NFL announces its draft order live. Imagine that. Or even better, you don't have to imagine it. The NBA just did it this week, and they've done it every year since 1985. Football needs a draft lottery. It would be great for the league. It would be great for the fans. Literally everyone would watch it. Imagine the 18 teams that missed the playoffs and all of the fans gathered around televisions, waiting for the ping pong balls to do their thing and the envelopes to be opened, and Arch Manning is playing the role of Cooper Flagg. The ratings would be ridiculous. But that's not the reason to do it. The thing about the lottery is it's a good idea. Tanking is a scourge. It is the worst thing in sports. Losing should never be incentivized. The NFL has always strived for parity. It's a great idea. It has served them well. But the trouble is, as their season has gotten longer, the bottom is starting to fall out of that a little. Last year, 10 teams won less than 30% of their games. That was the most ever. 6 of those teams won less than 25%. That's the most since 1926. Teams are throwing in the towel. That's exacerbated by the 17th game. Soon there's going to be an 18th, and I'm all for that. But this problem will only get worse. For example, this past year, the Browns fielded a roster so non-competitive in Week 18, they were 20.5-point underdogs to Baltimore, and the Ravens covered. The ping pong balls are the answer. Oh, and one final note on that. The lottery is not rigged. Come on, people. There is no one with a shred of common sense who thinks that a business worth tens of billions of dollars would jeopardize literally every penny over something so comparatively trivial. The lottery is a good idea because it makes losing less valuable, and it makes for pretty terrific drama as well. It is the best idea that basketball has had in a long time, and it would be, if you will excuse a mixed metaphor, a slam dunk for football as well.
So that was Mike Greenberg stating his case for the NFL to adopt a draft lottery. And lucky for us, CBS Sports did this exercise. So CBS Sports, they took the draft order from the NFL and they made it look like what it would be if there were a draft lottery with the same exact odds that the NBA's had. So according to CBS, so the original draft order, by the way, for the NFL: Titans, Browns, Giants, Patriots, Jaguars, Raiders, Jets, Panthers, Saints, Bears, Niners. The hypothetical draft order with the lottery: the San Francisco 49ers would have had the number one pick in the NFL draft, followed by the Panthers at 2, the Jaguars at 3, the Giants at 4, and the Titans at 5. So if there were a hypothetical NFL draft lottery based on the same odds as the NBA draft lottery, the Titans would have fallen from 1st to 5th.
This is the worst idea ever. I mean, Mike Greenberg saying that teams threw in the towel. The Giants and the Patriots both had opportunities to lock up the number one pick. If they had just lost out, the Giants, easy path to the number one pick and their franchise quarterback. Drew Lock blew out the Colts. Then Joe Milton for the Patriots. They benched Drake May. They're like, all right, we can get the number one pick. Patriots with their quarterback already could have traded back, got themselves a king's ransom. Well, Joe Milton beat the Bills. So tanking isn't an issue in the NFL. And also the reason the NBA has to do it is because one player can change the entire direction of a franchise. A Cooper Flagg could have turned the Washington Wizards into a competitive team if he ends up being the player he's expected to be. Football's you got 22 players, starters, 53 overall. One player isn't going to change the direction of the league. It's stupid. It'll never happen. Although I do agree with him on the one point that the ratings would be absolutely massive.
He noted that 10 teams in the NFL last season had a win percentage under 300, which was the most ever, including 6 teams who had a win percentage under 250. So I understand the point he's trying to make there. And he mentioned the game between the Ravens and the Browns, where the Browns put out, an Arena Football League team on the field, basically. But again, looking at the hypothetical draft order, CBS Sports did this exercise, and they took the NFL draft order and placed it by rewarding teams with the exact same odds that the NBA's did. So what they also did as well, guys, is they had a hypothetical draft based on the hypothetical draft lottery. So the San Francisco 49ers took Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. The Titans would have taken Mason Graham, the DT out of Michigan, with the 5th overall pick in the hypothetical NFL draft lottery.
Titans would have had defensive tackle juggernauts, but no one else on the team. Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, Mason Graham. Go do something because the rest of the team isn't going to help you. I mean, it's stupid. And I don't get why people think this is necessary. Like, the NFL is the one league that is built completely around parity, and they try and make it as easy for bad teams to get better. The NBA, like the Washington Wizards, again, I'll keep using them as an example. They won 1 draft lottery and they got John Wall. They've probably been in the lottery 18 out of the last 20 years or something since then, and they can't seem to get another superstar player. So I just think it doesn't make sense for football unless you're just trying to boost ratings on what would be a made-for-TV event.
Craig on our text line says, Greenberg can say draft lotteries aren't rigged all he wants, but it would appear being a big market team helps your chances, especially in the NHL. And I made this point with Willie Donick the other day because we were talking about draft lotteries. The New York Islanders winning the draft lottery. The New York Islanders, New York, is a little bit different than New York. Like the New York Rangers winning the draft lottery, Midtown Manhattan, Madison Square Garden, Original 6 franchise versus the New York Islanders, on Long Island. And I've got family on Long Island. I love Long Island. It's different than New York. The name is the same. It's a little bit different, in my opinion, at least. One texter says, I have serious concerns for Mike Greenberg's sanity and intelligence level. The lottery is the worst possible way to pick your draft slot. The plan that Adam put out there from the Women's Hockey League seems to be the least flawed and most fair way to keep the regular season competitive and relevant. And he's referring to the gold plan, which the Professional Women's Hockey League has. Basically, what it happens is when a team is officially eliminated from playoff contention, they start banking points. So teams that are eliminated earlier in the season have more games to play, more chances to collect points. And the team that collects the most points after being eliminated from playoff contention at the end of the regular season gets the number 1 pick. It incentivizes teams not to tank because they still have to keep playing. Now, the flaw in it, as Willie Donick pointed out, specifically in the NHL, is if there's a imbalance in the conferences, as there was this past season or this ongoing season, where in the Western Conference, teams were eliminated in mid-March, while teams in the Eastern Conference weren't eliminated until early April. It may not be fair.
That's a good point.
But I am a proponent of the gold plan.
The only way I could get behind a draft lottery for the NFL is if it is only used as a tiebreaker. So like this year, there were 4 teams that all finished at 3 and 14
right,
or
the
something
Patriots
like that.
And the Titans, maybe the Browns.
If you want to draw those 4 names out of a hat instead of using strength of schedule, I can get behind that if they all have the same record. But I think the way that they've been doing it for years, there hasn't been any complaints about the NFL draft order. Like no one's saying, man, the Titans shouldn't have had the number 1 pick this year. It works. But if you wanted to do that instead of strength of schedule, if you said, all right, these teams all have the same record. We're going to draw them out of a hat and see who picks first. I could at least understand that process instead of saying, oh, the Bengals went 10-7 and lost a win and in game for a chance to go to the playoffs. Let's give them a chance at the number 1 overall pick.
615-737-1025. Is the NFL draft lottery as proposed by Mike Greenberg a bad idea or the worst idea ever conceived by anybody in the history of our planet? 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Adam Vingen, 1025-1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Jake Lyman, Adam Vingen here with you. We are taking you up to pregame for Vanderbilt baseball against Kentucky at 5:45. First pitch is at 6, of course, right here on 1025-1063 The Game. Jake Lyman wearing his Vanderbilt shirt. I do want to give a shout out to a Vanderbilt alum, Luke Cornett.
Yes.
An insane performance for Cornett relative to what we usually see from Cornett in the NBA. Last night, as the Boston Celtics avoid elimination, sans Jason Tatum, 127-102 against the New York Knicks. There's a word that you hear at this time of year that you never hear anywhere else, the word stave. They staved off elimination. You hear stave in no other context except for this team avoided being eliminated from the playoffs.
It's a very good point.
But the Celtics staved off elimination. Luke Cornett, 26 minutes off the bench, 10 points, 9 rebounds, 7 blocks, 5 for 5 from the field, and a plus 20 on the court.
He's carved out a nice little role for himself there with the Celtics. I mean, he kind of does exactly what they need him to do off the bench. I know he's gone away from his patented Cornet contest where he would just jump from the middle of the lane when someone's shooting a 3-point shot. But I like Luke Cornet. Vanderbilt, they continue to churn out NBA players, even though some of those years, towards the end of the Bryce Drew era and into the Jerry Stackhouse era weren't great. There are some really good NBA players out there from Vandy. Darius Garland, I think, is probably the biggest name out there. But cool to see Luke Cornet making an impact in the playoffs. And although the Celtics think it's unlikely that they make it out of this round, maybe there's a chance he can have another nice game in Madison Square Garden tomorrow.
I don't know. I feel the same way about the Knicks that I do about the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs were up 2-0.
Find a way to.
They're down 3-2 against the Panthers with Game 6 tomorrow. It would not shock me in the slightest if the Celtics won on the road in the next game to force a Game 7.
Man, if the Knicks blow a 3-1 lead
without Jason Tatum on the other side,
the best player on the other team out, I mean, they're never going to win a championship if they can't get through this series.
No, and we will see what happens. But I wanted to give Luke Cornet a shout out because he had a monster game off the bench yesterday for the Celtics as they staved off elimination. So the Tennessee Titans schedule is out. We went through it. We gave our bold predictions. Jake's bold prediction is that the Titans will win 5 of 8 following their bye week. So 5 of these 8 games, home to Houston, home to Seattle, home to Jacksonville, at Cleveland, at San Francisco, home to Kansas City, and home to the Saints, and on the road against the Jags.
I don't feel good about it, but it is my bold prediction.
Well, that's why it's a bold prediction.
I do think Cam Ward is going to play better after the bye, especially where he has that 3-week stretch after the bye where he doesn't have to leave home a month total, including that Chargers game. And again, there's winnable games in there. The Browns and Saints might be, along with the Titans, in that cellar basement of the NFL. The Jags aren't going to be very good. You see them twice. And then who knows, maybe you can snag one more in a couple of home games against the Texans and the Seahawks.
My bold prediction was that 3-game road trip that the Titans have September 28th, October 5th, and October 12th at Houston, at Arizona, at Las Vegas, that they will win 2 of those 3 games.
I could see it. I really could. I don't think the Cardinals are going to be that good this year. I don't think they're going to be horrible. Same with the Raiders, but both of those winnable games. And again, like I said at the beginning of the show, to use the cliche, you can throw out the records when these two teams play each other. The Texans and Titans, you just never know what's going to happen. The as Jared calls them, the JV Texans a couple years ago beat the Titans in Nashville, so it can happen.
One texter on Mike Greenberg's NFL draft lottery idea says Greenberg hasn't been relevant since Mike and Mike ended. I mean, Mike Greenberg, he's all over the place on ESPN.
He's like ESPN's #1 host. Like, if there's something to host, it's Mike Greenberg who does it. So he's relevant, but that doesn't mean his takes are very good.
One texter on the schedule says, if the Titans can double the win total from last year and just look like a competent pro football team, I would be satisfied. Last year's team was an insult to NFL football.
I think that's a good goal for the Titans.
I believe their over-under is 5.5.
I think if the Titans win 6 games and at the end of the year, you feel like you found your franchise quarterback in Cam Ward, it's a success. Now, that would have to mean that the Titans probably win a lot of those games late, because if you finish the season like 0-6, you're probably not feeling great about Cam Ward. But I think 6+ wins and Cam Ward shows enough that you feel good about him as your franchise quarterback. That is a win in 2025 for the Titans.
Titans open the season on the road at Denver, September 7th. The Broncos, a 7-point favorite already against the Titans in that game. As I told Teron Davenport during the TD Power Hour, I like the matchup. I like the challenge that the Broncos present. You've got to throw in the whole altitude thing. I think that's overblown, but there's going to be a lot made of that leading into that game. A great defense on the other side. #1 overall pick on the road to start his career. I would rather Cam Ward have that type of challenge than to play a lesser team in his first game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's good to get him that experience. And I think we need to, just as a football community, just relax, be patient. Everybody anointed Marcus and Will Levis as the franchise savior after their debuts when they threw for 4 touchdowns. If Cam Ward goes out and struggles and throws a couple of picks, let's not jump off the wagon completely. And I know I'm preaching this 4 months out before everybody has a chance to panic, but I think the Titans fans, if Cam Ward struggles, know that it's a tough game to start off your NFL career on the road. If it isn't great, it's only game 1.
One texter says, Week 7 will determine if Brian Callahan is the coach for a few years or fired midseason. That, of course, being the Patriots game. I think a lot of fans think that if there is an A.J. Brown with the Eagles type of game at home against the Patriots, if Mike Vrabel comes in here and the Patriots run all over the Titans, I think a lot of fans are going to expect a response from the owner the same way that they got one after that Eagles game a few years ago.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but Amy Adams-Strunk can't just fire everybody when somebody else that she fired comes in.
I mean, she is the boss.
She is.
She can do whatever she wants.
She might start slipping towards like Jim Irsay territory of like just being known as one of the more volatile owners in the league if she does that.
Well, that'll do it for us today on Stillman and Company. Jared will be back tomorrow. I know many of you are excited about that. He will be well rested. He'll probably be tan, maybe even a little bit sunburnt. I'm sure he's been warming up those takes for an entire week, and he's busting at the seams to just yell them into this microphone. But that'll do it for us. Our schedule is back to normal tomorrow, starting with Robbie and Rex Road at 6 to 9 a.m. Jake Lyman, Adam Ving, and Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.